On this episode of Still Loading.
Really? Like gagging you with a spoon.
Time to begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and it is Captain N time, baby. We are back with more adventures of Captain N, and I promise there will be a lot less N-related puns than there was in the previous episode. But with me today, of course, my co-host with the mo-host of the bro-host, Dexter Morrill. Dexter, how are you doing today?
Hey, it's me. I can't make that same promise. I might be dropping puns, so...
That's all right. As long as one of us is trying. No, we are here to talk about Season 2, Episode 5 of Captain N the Game Master. It's called The Big Game, written by Dennis O'Flaherty and released on October 6, 1990. Dennis actually wrote both of the episodes we are recording today. A little behind-the-scenes thing. We were trying to... Our time frames are usually pretty tight, so we could usually only get to fit one episode per recording session. But we're going to try to beat the system, and the system by system I mean our children. Not beat our children. That sounds awful. My analogy's falling down, Dexter. This isn't working. But we're trying to fit it all in during their nap, so we'll see what we do. But so Dennis O'Flaherty wrote this, and as per usual, we're going to start off with things that we noticed in this episode, and I don't want to take yours. I think we might have the same one, and I have a couple options for this. So why don't you kind of shout out one of your observations, a general observation from this episode?
Yeah, if we are on the same wavelength, I think that the thing that jumps out about this one is this feels the most nuts. This feels the most like I was having a bad trip.
Yeah.
Because most of these episodes, it already feels like you're on drugs watching this show, but this one felt like bad drugs.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The plot makes no fucking sense. It is all over the place. I have never... my two observations were kind of similar to yours. The first one was just this episode is bonkers. Like, the story is all over the place. There is so much exposition about shit that does not matter, and all the things that does matter, they don't bother explaining. So it's all over the place. Then the other half of it is, I was thinking about this. I'm really noticing, we kind of gave, we joked a lot during season 1 about, Jeffrey Scott, please come on the show. We love you. And, we were joking. We were serious about him coming on the show, but a lot of it was tongue in cheek because the show's kind of meh. We love the show, but you can't deny the writing isn't always its strongest suit. I'm not going to lie. This season, I'm noticing a difference in the writing because this season I don't think is as good as the first one. And it's not even close. What are your thoughts, though?
Yeah, the writing's definitely very inconsistent. I mean, I think that shows with one voice versus there's been, even 5 episodes in, it's been 4 different writers, I think, over the course of these episodes.
Yeah, we have had, actually, if you count, because there's 2 on the one episode, there's 6 different writers. There's Dorothy Middleton that for episode 1. Episode 2 was David Ehrman and Sean Roche. 3rd episode, Rick Merwin. 4th episode, Michael Maurer. And then the 5th episode is this one, Dennis O'Flaherty. Dennis actually writes 3 episodes this season, and we're knocking the first Lord. 2 out in a row. I'm very concerned about the last one, which is Having a Ball, which shows up. It's actually episode 9. So we only have 2 in the middle between. We're just being sandwiched by O'Flaherty's here. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about this episode. The premise of The Big Game is that Dr. Wily, or this episode called The Big Game, Dr. Wily discovers a new source of power, a new source of energy called competition energy, and he has found a way to harness it. So he shows Mother Brain an example of how this works by making King Hippo and Eggplant Wizard compete against one of his robots, which I don't think they understand the definition of the term compete.
Yes. No, that was you described it much more coherently in one sentence what the premise is supposed to be, but this episode, it's so clunky. The exposition in this is so
Yes.
clunky, and it's not even just that it's obviously exposition, because I mean it's a kid show, whatever, but as far as like it's beyond like obvious exposition. It's now clunky because they well, first of all, they the narrator starts out telling us um, that Dr. Wily was in Megaland in Skull Castle. Is that canon? Is that actually what his place is called? I wrote that down.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but if you play the Mega Man games, like the final boss area
Yeah.
is in a castle that has a big skull on it.
Yeah. That sounds like that would be the name, but I was like, is that actually the name? I actually don't know if anyone's ever named Wily's place, but yeah. First, he starts out by wanting to introduce his invention. Okay, fine. He's the villain, of course. But then after he's like, yes, I've got this invention and it draws in the most powerful energy in video land,
Yes.
competition energy. And then you're like, oh,
Competition energy.
I was like, okay, I can go with this. And then Mother Brain's like, what's competition energy? And I was like, wait,
I
wait.
think it's pretty self-explanatory. Like you don't need to do exposition here.
But not only that, but then like it's the most powerful energy, and she didn't know. But then Dr. Wily then goes, oh yes, I also discovered competition energy.
Yeah, she's like, why? She says, why haven't I heard of this before? And he's like, well, I only just discovered it. So like,
Yeah. You'd
it's
think he would lead
brand
with
new.
that, not with like, I have this new invention. You'd think he'd be like, hey, I discovered this new energy and I'm going to
Right?
find a way to draw it. But then, yeah, exactly like you said, he sends out Metal Man to attack King Hippo and Eggplant Wizard, who spend the entire time running from him and trying to avoid him, but it's still drawing competition energy from them. And I was like, that's the
Yeah.
opposite. Giving up is the opposite of competition, right? Like, I don't want to play. Like,
They really, like I said, they really don't know what the definition of competition is in this show, in this
yeah.
episode. It absolutely makes no sense.
But
And
then the result,
he
real quick, the result is to use that energy to send the N team to the earthquake warp zone.
yes, the earthquake zone or
They,
whatever,
they
earthquake world
drop
or
that
whatever.
information, and then that's it. They don't explain that at all. They're just like, that's what it's just so convoluted.
Like,
Sorry, I'll
why
let
is
you
that a
go
bad
on.
thing? Is it's like the term earthquake zone, as much as earthquakes are bad, it doesn't necessarily imply like death or like they're going away forever. Like if it would have been if okay, it's a kids show, right? So they're not going to be like, we're going to send them to like the murder zone or something
Hell
like that,
zone.
or hell zone. If they really wanted to, they could just send them to jail zone, right? Where they're just going to be in jail. Like,
Or where
why
they end
not
up
just
going at the end, not to spoil
right?
things yet. Yeah.
Or just something like that. And well, back at the Palace of Power, which it kind of saddens me that I know this term without having to think about it anymore. Like I just know the N team's headquarters. What have we been doing to ourselves, Dexter? We uh, so yeah, it's back at the Palace of Power, and Lana is noticing Kevin is looking sad. He's looking wistful, forlorn. It's because he misses his home, and so her and Mega Man are trying to make him feel like it, like remind him of California. Now it reminds me of the Wizard, the California. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, every time someone says California, that's what pops into my head of all things. And the worst part is like I didn't even see the Wizard as a kid. I first heard about it from the AVGN because like it just something my parents never like. I'm old enough that I could have seen it on like VHS or something like that, but I should have seen it beforehand. But my parents, I wasn't. I was born right
You
actually
were
the year it came
spared.
out. Yeah, pretty
Oh,
much.
okay.
Um, yeah, so I saw it through AVGN, and he always makes a joke about how he's a kid hell bent on going to California, and he puts together a little montage of him going California, California, California. And so now every time, because of that one video, anytime someone says California, that's my immediate go-to. And sometimes I'll catch myself quoting it and people just stare at me because, like, obviously, like, that's such an obscure reference that I would argue even people who know The Wizard wouldn't pick up on it just because it's such a dumb, like, it's not a reference. It's not like it's a quotable line. It's just
You've
a
taken an
weird
obscure
thing.
movie, an obscure line from an obscure movie that is referenced from an obscure YouTube like
Like most
corner.
people who know The Wizard, if you do, you would recite the Power Glove line, you know.
Yeah,
But this one is just California, and it for some reason it makes me laugh. Anyway, so Kevin misses California. Oh, and I'm sorry, I said his name. So Kevin misses California, and so what is it? Lana's like skateboarding or like roller skating or something, and she crashes into Simon, who just made popcorn, who's in time for, I forget what show. He drops in these 2 episodes specifically. He drops like these fictional shows. I think like one was like Morgue Masters or something like that. In the next episode, he drops that reference. I don't remember exactly, but
this one
yeah.
was
So
Castlevania Bandstand.
that's what it was, Castlevania Bandstand. But the show takes place in California Games World. California
Yeah.
Games World.
Oh,
Like,
you're skipping over quite a bit.
oh, go on, go
I
on.
have to backtrack. Sorry. Um, they were watching Castlevania Bandstand, and the band that was performing was the Ungrateful Undead, which I thought was kind of a funny joke.
There
But
are some
the
solid jokes in this show.
yeah, that one I was like, okay, you got me there. The thing that I wrote down in my notes that you had skipped over was, like they said, oh, I think Kevin, he misses California, and
Now you're gonna do it.
and their solution to that was, yes, to have Mega Man show up with a skateboard, and then they let Lana skate on it. But when he's giving the skateboard to Kevin to try,
I think I
um,
know you're going at.
Kevin's like, "Oh wow, you made this?" And they're like, "Yeah, we made it for you. We thought it would make you feel more at home." And Mega Man says, "All right, get out there, Mondo Nose," or something like that. And I was like, "Is that a thing? Was that a thing that I missed in the '90s?" And even Kid Icarus is like, "Mondo Nose," and Mega Man's like, "It's a California thing. You wouldn't get it." And I was like, I'm so confused. That sounded like an insult. Mondo
I know,
nose?
like, why would you? That's like calling someone a shoebie, right? Or so,
Yes.
oh my god.
And the robot later that says, "Gag me with a spoon." I was like, okay, that I've heard that before.
He said, I didn't hear that line. These 2 episodes were so hard to concentrate on. I was having such a hard. I watched this episode specifically 4 goddamn times, Dexter, and I can barely put together like a sentence on it. Like, it is
I'm
just
impressed
so.
that you're here right now.
Oh my god! I woke up with my kid this morning, who it's actually, I love it. The days we do our recording sessions are the days I usually wake up with her. So her and I, before Courtney wakes up, have daddy daughter cartoon mornings, and we watch Captain N.
Yay.
She actually says, she'll go like Captain N. It's really funny. She likes Mario Super Show more, which, you know what, fair. But yeah, so they Kevin skateboards around the walls. Lana tries skateboarding as well. That's when she crashes into Simon. And this whole plan of Wily's, like we said, like he wants to get the end team to produce enough competition energy so that way he can then use whatever the warp zone thing is and send them to the earthquake zone, and they can just, then Mother Brain and the team can just escape, unscathed. And this whole thing just makes no sense the whole time because he sends he sends a fake commercial over onto the TV that they're watching to for like an all expense paid trip to California Games World, and tickets come out of the TV. Like, there's just a little hole. It just, tickets
Like
feed out of this
arcade
TV.
tickets too.
Yeah, like it
Bzzz.
means nothing. I'm like, what kind of magic TV is this? This was not, and I know what I noticed. This is sad how much we've watched this. the couch is different from what it was in the previous season. The couch and TV are not the same couch and TV that we're used to from previous seasons. Now, I will say the couch has a kind of similar shape to it in a sense where it's like, it's got the normal sitting spot and then those elevated seats in the back. And it was, I don't know if there was elevated seats in this new one in the back, but like it had that cross shape, that X shape in the back still. So like, I feel like there's a little bit of continuity, and you know what? No one's going to give a shit about that. I just find it funny that I noticed the lack of continuity in this stupid cartoon. I'm a little disappointed in myself.
That's when they saw the robot, though, that I was discussing, is that he built one of his robots to be the quote unquote actress in the commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just throwing out all these different like 90s Valley Girl like things.
Oh,
And
that
that's
was
what she's like,
it hurt
oh my
listening.
God, gag me with a spoon. And like, it's so out of context. And for some reason, Kevin's like, yeah, that sounds legit. Like, no, it doesn't.
I really want to know where Dennis O'Flaherty was from. Like, was he from the Valley? Like, was it from California? Because like this makes absolutely no fucking sense.
I know. And the fact that none of them understood his California, like the things about California, but then they go to the California Games world. I was like, wait, do you know what California is or do you not? Because like there is a California Games zone in Videoland, but they
Well,
just don't get it. And I was very confused. That was on top of the competition energy thing. And then now this, I was like, why are there so many inconsistencies like within 30 seconds of each other?
there's so much wrong with this episode, and it just gets, the worst part is that in terms of plot continuity and plot understandability, this is the high point of the episode. It just goes downhill from here. It gets so
And
much worse.
Dennis drops a lore bomb on us at the end of this episode too, and then like skirts by
Yes,
it. And I was like, wait, what?
this is news to me.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. But I do love that it cuts to a montage. They do go to California Games World, which what a clunky sentence. And they do throw in a little montage here of, you know, them having, you know, the end team having some fun. You know, Mega Man skating on this kind of like boardwalk roller coaster thing, which is kind of dope looking. Kevin and Lana, what are they riding? They're bicycles. They're riding bicycles, I think, right?
Yeah.
And Dr. Wily sends all of his like robots there to basically instigate, like, kind of terrorize them a little bit, just enough, but not like actually terrorize them, just instigate them to be like, try to beat us, come on, like, to get up that competitive energy. And I love Lana's reaction where he's like, that seems like it's something from Dr. Wily, or from, you know, Mega Man's world. I'm not gonna let them beat me. I'm like, why do you give a shit? There's no, like, there's no race, there's no stakes. Like, what is it, just because they were being like a dick to you? Like, if I was in that situation, I would have like honked my horn, flipped my middle finger, and then just went about my day. Like,
It was
like,
very
what is
Marty
the
McFly of him, where like Marty
right?
McFly's one weakness is like you call him chicken and he's like, oh, I'm gonna get you. That's what it kind of felt like.
Like some of the other things in this montage, so Kid Icarus and Kevin are skateboarding on a half pipe. Oh, I remember. So I forgot I wrote down this note. Wiley's extractor to extract the competition energy, because like while all this is happening, it's cutting back and forth between all the competition stuff happening, and then also Dr. Wily talking about getting the competition energy. The extractor thing, it's weird because it's like, if I remember correctly, it's kind of like up on like a little tiny, a thin like rod, and then it's got this round
Yeah.
oval shape, and it looks like a butthole. It's another butthole reference in Captain N. It's just sucking up competition. So, listeners, now you know buttholes are competition energy absorbers. I don't know what that means in the context of real life, but according to Captain
I
N
don't think I
logic,
want to know.
there's so many implications we could go with this. But you know what? I think we should just let our listeners' imaginations do the work for us. So we'll
Yes,
just
this will
let
be
it
the
do it.
first one where we tell you not to watch and let the imagination do all the work for you.
Oh,
We're just going to paint the butthole picture for you.
oh my God. Yeah, and so I want you to get I want to hear your thoughts on this, Dexter. But to wrap up this kind of scene, pretty much the whole premise is, you know, there's a montage of all this stuff happening, and then the robots go a little bit too far, and it kind of saps all the fun out of it for the end team. So they're like, "This isn't fun anymore. We're not going to play any of these games now." And Dr. Wily's like, "No, no, no!" Actually, his reaction to the no 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 thing made me laugh because it was so like over and under dramatic all at the same time. I don't know how to describe it. I'm still trying to figure out what the audio clip for this episode to that starts off the episode should be. I'm kind of leaning towards that, or maybe it's the gag me with a spoon thing. I'm not sure yet.
She says it so fast too. Um, yeah, because Dr. Wily's machines, all the robots start to take it too far. They start to be a little bit more violent instead of actually competing, and
Hmm.
so the rest of the team, they're like packing up to leave because they're like, no, we don't, we're not going to do this. We're just here to have fun. And that's when Wily loses his mind, and he decides on a risk maneuver like this. His plot is to do a secret thing that's going to cost competition energy, but he's hoping that in the end
Yes.
it will increase the amount that he's drawing from the end team. And so he decides in the one of the craziest moves we've seen on the show to warp Kevin's entire high school into the California Games video land. I didn't quite understand what was happening. It took a little bit for me to actually like,
Yeah.
oh, this is actually happening. I thought it would be like a mirage or just
Yeah, I
like,
think that's the strangest thing because so far in this show, never once has they have been able to warp something from Kevin's world into Videoland. It's always
yeah,
been like, here's an approximation. Like there's that one episode where Kevin thinks he's gone home when in actuality it's just this like, Mother Brain set up part of Metroid to look like his hometown type
yeah,
of
or
thing.
the bully that Dr. Wily
Yeah.
made, where it was just a robot that looked like the kid that bullied
That,
Kevin. So
exactly.
they've never actually been able to manifest anything because it was supposed to be the big deal that they got Kevin to begin with, like to get someone from our world to help them. And now, like, I get that competition energy is the most powerful, but that seems like an even bigger deal that he was able to bring an entire high school into Videoland.
What a dumb idea. Like I don't understand the logic behind Wiley being like, I know what I'll do to keep this competition energy flowing. I'll spend what little I have to bring in Kevin's high school and 5 of his classmates. Like what and like I okay, I was under the impression that, it just happened to be those 5 people in the high school at the time that it got warped over. So, issue number 1 with that. 1, what are the odds that it's only those 5 random kids in the entire high school that get
Right.
warped over with them? Issue number 2, why bring the high school in? I don't like how do you have no guarantee of who's going to be there or what's going to be there. And third major issue is it's just everything just works out on luck that it's the football team. Like who's to say it would have been those 5? Like what?
Yeah.
Like there's it's why why is it only those 5 when there's a whole staff there? It should have been more. It's also why the high school in the first place? Like how does that benefit you at all in any
I
way,
think
shape, or
it would have
form?
made more sense if it was like the football field of his high school or something like that, and those 5 just happened to be there for practice there or something
Yeah,
like
something
that.
like that. It makes no sense. But are there any comments you have that I might have glazed over in between the montage of them doing all the California game stuff, the quote unquote competition, and Dr. Wiley being like, I have an idea. I'm gonna warp in a high school.
No, it's the stuff coming up that I have comments on. But I did feel like once I realized, no, these kids are real and this is really his high school, this isn't some like vision, that it was starting to, that particular plot was starting to feel more like a real like plot I would be invested in than anything up to this point. Like, oh, interesting. They have to work
I
together.
I do think it's weird that he warped like because in the beginning of the episode, he warps all of his robots over. Like he has power to warp them wherever he wants to already. So why does he need competition energy to send somebody to the earthquake zone? He literally just warped all of his robots over to California games. Like, I'm very confused by the need for any of this. It makes absolutely no sense. It's funny, we talk about how little sense this episode makes, but it just gets, this is the worst I've seen of this show. Like, in general, this whole show has lots of stuff, we make fun of, like, oh, this plot is dumb, or this doesn't make any sense. I It's just one of those things where, like, you have to watch it 3 times to even understand. Like, I guarantee you, listeners, if you watch this episode, if you subject yourself to this episode, I shouldn't say I guarantee, I'm fairly certain that if you watch this episode, you would be so lost in the plot without having an explanation. I'm not even saying for us to, like, that it's because you wouldn't understand it without us. You wouldn't understand it with just someone explaining what the fuck is happening in the plot of this episode. Kevin's high school classmates, they're not friends. That's very clear. They're just, they recognize him from high school. And
Yeah, the
there's
cheerleader, she calls
yeah,
him. What'd she call him? I can't remember what she thought his name
like
was.
the video game player who helped me with my math
Corvus.
homework or something
Yeah,
like this.
or something like that. She calls him, and he's like, "It's Kevin, actually." Like,
Yeah, Curvis. I forgot she calls him Curvis or Kermit. I don't remember
yeah,
exactly. He's like, it's Kevin, actually. It just it all they're not bullies. That's what I find interesting. There is one guy who's kind of a bully, but like the most of the football players are actually not bullies. It's just the one dude who they literally draw him to look like a pig. He kind of looks like Ganon, in all honesty.
yes.
Um,
I
he's
was
the bully.
wondering. I was wondering if they were trying to make, like, if all of the people that were brought were supposed to be archetypes like the N team, because one of them's the quarterback of the football team, and I felt like he was kind of the leader, and like the
Yeah,
Kevin. The
I thought the
cheerleader
same
looked
thing.
a lot like Lana except blonde, but she was more of a ditz. And the big pig looking guy, I was wondering if he was supposed to be like Mega Man because he was strong, and he even makes a he even mentions at one point, like, noticing how Mega Man's like just easily able to lift stuff even though he's tiny. Like, I could do that. And then there's a blonde guy who's
He's like the
very,
pretty boy.
yes, which seems to be like Simon. He acts a
They
lot like
I
Simon.
think that dynamic you're talking about is like most evident with Simon and that blonde guy, because like they really kind of, they're both hitting on Princess Lana. Like, the blonde dude is really attracted to Lana, and Simon, of course, is always like hitting on Lana. And
Yeah.
but Simon tries to hit on the blonde cheerleader, which I forget her name. Um, but yeah, you're right. I do think there is some element of them trying to do that, kind of like, this is the high school version of the N team, like the California high school version of the N team.
They're all hunkered down in the high school. It's become kind of like their home base where they're kind of figuring out, okay, how do we want to take on Wily's army and stuff like that. And they decide that they're going to use playing football to do it. Like, that's what we know what to do best, so that's what we're going to do. Meanwhile, I don't know if we talked about this, that Mother Brain is going to join them, and there. I laughed harder than I probably should have.
I know what you're talking about.
Mother Brain transforms so she can go to the California games, but she drops down into like this pit. Meanwhile, they keep cycling the same scream from King Hippo and Eggplant
Yeah.
Wizard, just over and over, like, ah, ah, ah. They're like looping it, and then she pops up, and now her tank is also like a motorcycle,
Hmm.
like a and the funny thing is, she shows up and like, I'm gonna go and stop them, or go, I'm gonna go to California games. And then after that, when they're driving off with Mother Brain, they do the same scream again, like a fourth time, and they laughed. And then Dr. Wily, when he's finally like there to challenge them, I was like, oh, here's another thing that that Captain N did first. Dr. Wily's like giant Mufasa in the sky.
Yes, I was thinking that watching it this morning, and I'm like, I didn't think of the Mufasa reference, but I'm like, how is, like, what? like there's nothing projecting that head up there. Like at
Yeah.
least in Lion King, you can make the argument it's like a religious experience that he's having. But in this, it's just a bunch of like Dr. Wily's just like, yeah, my head's up in the sky. Don't bother wondering how I put it up there. It's just up there.
I remember being like, "What is happening? Like, why is Dr. Wily Mufasa now?"
It's
Uh,
just oh my gosh, sorry listeners. I'm
yes,
not bored. I'm
and
just it's been a busy weekend. Sorry, go on, Dex.
I was gonna say the cheerleader is. I don't know if she's jealous of Lana or if, but all of a sudden she's starting to show interest in Kevin, and she's starting to be a lot more interested in the end team, and both Simon and the Simon version of the kid in the high school football team,
Mm-hmm.
they I can't remember if they drop something or if they're like, oh, allow me. They're both like tripping over each other trying to help Lana, and the cheerleader girl says, oh, you're both so gallant. And I was like, I honestly can't tell if that was a joke making fun of the cheerleader being a ditz or if nobody knew how to pronounce gallant. But
Well, isn't it Goofus and Gallant? Like it's supposed to be like the
yeah, I know the term, but I thought that it was, I maybe I thought that was like the British pronunciation. Like I thought that,
I never thought we'd get into I think you are correct though. Like if someone's acting gallantly, then it's kind of like it's spelled kind of similarly. But I always thought the cartoon, the little comic strip, was
okay,
Goofus and
Goofus and
Gallant.
Gallant. Okay. So it's my
Um,
fault.
I don't know. I could
Misinterpreting
be
it.
wrong though. I could be off with that. I'd have to double check. But but either way, she says it strangely in
Yeah.
all context. Whether it's supposed to be gallant, like gallantly, but how does she say it? It's gallant? She
She
says.
says they're both being so gallant.
Yeah, that's like it's the wrong pronunciation
Yeah.
if in every imagination, in every stretch of it. Now,
Yeah.
I believe the Princess Lana and the cheerleader are both voiced. Well, we know Princess Lana is voiced by Venus Terzo, but I believe Venus Terzo also voiced the cheerleader in this because she's like,
Ah,
her Lana counterpart, which I thought was pretty cool. Honestly, she did a pretty good job. And actually, we'll get to it in the next episode. I think Venus Terzo is fantastic in the next episode.
yeah.
And
Yes, she is.
we'll
I
get to
like
it,
the
of
voice
course.
of Rick, the quarterback, was a good voice too.
I wonder who did that. I have to look it up. Uh, so he meets with his high school, not friends. They recognize him and they're like, "Oh, you're that video game player." What a dumb line. Um, and they then Wily's minions start to attack. They hide in the high school, and they're trying to determine like Wily's like, I'm not going to let you out unless you play a game or something like that. And they decide like, well, why don't we? The football team realizes like Kevin actually can do shit because he's the captain. He's he's the I was going to say the end master. What do they call him?
The game master.
The game master. Why am I blank? Why did I blank on that? Holy shit! It's in the fucking title next, and it's the captain and the game master. And I'm like, what is his title again? The end master. Oh my god. Um,
It's this
I'm
episode. I don't
I'm
blame
so
you.
mad, dude. This weekend is just a blur. It's been a blur. I was telling you beforehand off mic, like my kid was like super cranky this morning, and I actually did realize it was probably because she was hungry because we were waiting to feed her for her normal time, which was an hour later than what she's used to. So it was like, yeah, I'm not surprised she was really hungry, but in any case, so he's protecting the end. Kevin and the end team are protecting the high schoolers, and they kind of hide in the high school, and that's when we were talking about like Dr. Wily reveals himself in the clouds like Mufasa's himself to them, and it's a verb now. We're making it something, and they decide like, well, why don't we just play football? Why don't we play football? That's something we're going to be good at, hence the football team, and we'll play them in football. And of course, Wily, when they go out to confront Wily, he's like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. Here's actually my starters, and it's all of his robots." This football game was wild. There is so much happening in this football game. Is there anything that I skipped over before we talk about the football game, though?
No, no, you're spot on. But I'm just now realizing that this was also before Space Jam, and this football game is very Space Jam. If you remember when the Toon Squad is getting their butts handed to them by the Monstars, like the same thing's happening here with the Robot Masters. They're totally like cheating and going by their own robot logic of football. People are
Yeah, right.
flying through the air. The football's being shot out of the air with cannons.
Duke scores a touchdown by biting onto the ball, and then the tail end of it gets popped, and it propels him like a rocket through the uprights. And I'm wondering what is happening right now. There's
I'm just imagining this out of context. Someone watching just this moment of the episode, like, what did I just turn on? This is
oh my god,
that
this
poor dog.
did I smoke before this? Did I did I take any acid before this? I don't know. This is a bad trip, man. It the whole this scene specifically is just so many of like the most insane stuff
And do you
that
remember the
I've seen in
song they
Captain N.
used for this montage?
Having a ball, having a ball.
They used it again.
Which episode did they use it in before? I know we've heard it already. I remember that. I even wrote that down as a note. I'm like, they're
It
using this song
was
again.
it was I blame Dennis for this, but it was the mother brain switching brains with uh, Donkey Kong, because I remember it's
Okay.
when the walls are falling and they're playing this like having a ball song while like people are like, oh my god, our home is being destroyed.
You're right. That's what it is. That's episode 2 of season 2, Queen of
Yeah,
the Apes. That's what it was. Um,
this
yeah,
at least made more sense because they're playing a ball
yeah.
game.
Well, and then we have an episode coming up called
Yeah,
"Having a Ball," and I'm
by
scared we're going to hear
Dennis.
this third by
Yeah,
Dennis O'Flaherty.
and then
I'm
the
really
next
scared we're going to
episode
hear
by
this again.
Dennis has Donkey Kong and Prince Pleasant. Sorry to spoil that for people for the next episode, but I was like, so it's all connected by this silly song.
You're right. Having a ball and Prince Pleasant, which I forgot about his name until you just said it. And
Oh, sorry,
Donkey Kong were all.
sorry, Prince Plenty, I think is his name.
I like Pleasant more, but Plenty
Yeah,
works too.
yeah,
But that's you're right. All three of those factors are in episode 2, and then two of those factors, or sorry, one of those factors is in this episode, written by Dennis O'Flaherty, and then Dennis brings in the other two factors of
yeah.
episode 2. There's just I'm so scared for episode 9, man. This is going to be the most hyped up event since Captain N season 1 ended. We're just waiting for episode 9 to find out, will we hear
Yes,
having a ball one more
the
time?
Dennis trilogy comes to an end.
The Dennis trilogy. Uh, oh my gosh. I think we might actually start referencing this, like the Dennis trilogy of Captain N, like as the season goes on and into next. But yeah, so like the Robot Masters doing so many different things. A lot of it is just like someone will catch the ball, one of the Robot Masters will like use a boomerang and knock it out of the dude's hands, and it catches into the other Robot Master. I was surprised how quickly the Robot Masters escalated to violence on some of these, like not, and I don't mean just like using a boomerang to like knock somebody around. I mean like explosives.
Yeah,
They use an explosive really early on I think the quarterback or something like that, or
yeah,
like the big defensive tackle dude. I don't fucking know. Um, it's just ridiculous. Well, and while all this is going on, Lana is like, I got to figure out what's going on with Wily's plan. Oh, and something I also thought we should at least shout out: Game Boy and the cheerleader are doing cheers for the N team, and Game Boy is projecting like "Go N team" or something like that.
yeah.
Give me what is the princess say? Or the cheerleader. She's like, give me an N, or give me a, I
Yeah,
forget what.
give me an N, give me a team, or something like that.
It just they stop. I thought she said, give me an N, give me a T, and then she just stops. Like she doesn't go
So
with
she
E
says
A.
team, I think
Does
is
she
what she
say
said.
team?
Give me an N, give me a team. Because
That's
I thought the
fucking
same thing.
stupid.
Yeah,
That's dumb.
it's a really
Like,
short cheer. Because
yeah, so give me an.
I did chuckle at her line when they go out and they see all the robots and stuff. And she goes,
Mhm.
boy, I hope I have enough cheers for this.
And then she just knows 2. That's
Yeah.
it. She's 2 cheers. That's all she's got for this. It's just so dumb. So while all this is happening, Lana is like, I got to figure out like what Wily's actually up to, and somehow she does find her way into where Wily's like thing, like
He's
his
collecting the
his
competition energy.
butthole competition energy collector, the butthole collector. That sounds even worse. But that's the last that you see. Like, you don't even see her see the competition energy collector. You just know that she enters the place where it's at. That's the last you see of it until the very end, when and I know I'm glossing over this. We're going to kind of talk about the stuff in the middle there, but Lana comes running up the field after the game's over and just saying, "Oh, Dr. Wily's warp thing is reversed. We're all going to go back. Like, everything's going to be okay." And that's the most explanation you get. You see her run away to find out what Dr. Wily's getting. You see it cut to where Wily's thing is. You see her like walking up to it, kind of. You don't even see her enter the building, I don't think. And then it just cuts back to her running across the field being like, "Don't worry, this was all solved," or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that's
For
it.
as for as clunky as the exposition was in the beginning, there's like nothing at the end, because I thought the same thing. I was like, they're not going to end this episode without explaining what the heck just happened, right? And then they do, because in the end, they're all transported to the trash warp zone. They're like,
Yes.
because they're like, "What's that smell? Oh no, the only thing that smells like that is the trash warp zone."
And that's right before Lana comes running in, because the cheerleader's like, "Do you think we're going to get warped there?" And that's when Lana comes running in and be like, "No, don't worry, Dr. Wily's thing is switched." But she doesn't say that she switched it. She just
No,
says that it's switched.
yeah,
So who did the saving? Your assumption is Lana. It has
yeah,
to be,
and
but
they
it
don't
still makes no sense.
and they don't actually show the bad guys being warped away either. Like,
No, it shows them running away into a
yeah,
warp. No, you do see them going into a warp zone, but they don't know they're going to the trash zone.
right. It all happens so fast and with like little explanation, because like you said, they don't actually show Lana like flipping a switch and changing anything, but they imply that she's going to, and but
Hmm.
they don't actually show it. And then like you said, that one line of dialogue where she's just like, "Don't worry, I've reversed his stuff." and then and then they drop the lore bomb on us when, because they're sending the friends back home, the high school back to Earth,
Yes.
and they're like, "Oh, we can't wait to hang out with you when you come back." And he's like, "Yeah, we'll have fun." And then they leave, and Lana's like, "Well, they won't." And Kevin's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "They won't remember you, because as soon as you leave Videoland, you forget everything." And Kevin's like, and first of all, I was like, "What? That's a
Yeah,
thing?" And
that's
then and then
news.
and then Kevin goes, "Yeah, I know." Wait, you knew
When were
too?
you going to tell us, Kevin? Huh? I was
So
so
so he
yeah.
knows that he's going to forget all of this when he goes back home as well. Like, that seems like pretty big information for the audience here.
It's really it's one of those things where they're trying to deliver an emotional point, like an emotional gut punch to you. It'd be like, they won't remember any of this big event, that this experience, that this collective experience, these people shared together, and they won't remember any of it. They won't even know they won't even know that they had this. Like, that's supposed to be like a big heavy moment, and it's not earned at all in this episode.
No, it reminds me of the Futurama joke where Fry's in love with the Lucy Lou bot, and when she's dying, and she's like, "I'll always remember you." Memory deleted.
And, I love that show.
But then,
There,
yeah, then Kevin, there's like an abrupt swoon ending, is how I wrote in my notes. Abrupt swoon ending, because Lana was kind of jealous of the cheerleader because Kevin was giving her attention, and kind of inadvertently mentioned that he had a crush on her, kind of was like liked her when they were in school together. But then he says something like, "Oh, I don't want to leave because you're just 1,000 times super duper cool, Lana." And she's like, "Ah," but it should be a different kind of emotion other than like, "Oh, I'm swooning." It should be like, that's going to be tragic when he has to leave if he's in love with Lana.
right? Like, the he'll have spent like how long collectively in video zone or in video land or whatever, and he's just not going to remember any of it. Like, what's the point of this series? Like,
Yes.
he doesn't learn anything. Like, this isn't a movie where you can tell that type of story and have like all of that be
And
for
it was
nothing
all
and
a
have
dream. Yeah.
and it was all a dream. But it doesn't work in a TV show. Now, I know we're taking this way too seriously for a kids cartoon that was literally meant just to sell kids Nintendo games, but that's what we're here for, to take this shit seriously.
You're welcome,
Um,
everyone.
right? This episode, it took me so long to understand the plot. Like, it took the second or third try, like watch through, to really understand what was going on. And I mean, I guess once again, just to summarize the whole plot, Wiley discovers this thing called competition energy. He gets a butthole machine to then absorb all the competition energy, and that then he's going to use that to send the end team to the earthquake zone. Why is the earthquake zone bad? I don't know. Can the end team ever get out of it? Probably, but they make it sound like they won't. There's just no rhyme or reason to any of it. And so, to get enough competition energy, he sends them over to California Games World. And first, he sends his robots there to have them compete against his robots. The robots are being dicks, so the end team's like, forget that. And Wiley's like, I have an idea. Let me use energy and warp an entire high school in. And then they use the five high schoolers that, for some reason, the only five high schoolers in the high school, including faculty, staff, and everything, all that other good stuff. The only five people are just five random high schoolers, and warps them in. They help win a football game for the competition energy, or to fill up the competition energy. Lana foils it, but you don't see her foil it. And she, quote unquote, what did I write down? The exact thing she says is that Wiley's warp shifter got shifted into reverse. Apparently, the opposite of an earthquake zone is trash zone. That's reverse. It makes no fucking sense, but just reversing it, whatever. So, and then the high schoolers from Kevin's world go back home. The end team survives. You don't know what happened to Mother Brain and the other team. You know they go into trash zone, but if they were able to escape because they're clearly in the next episode, then maybe sending to earthquake zone wouldn't have done shit either. This whole episode was just dumb. There's funny moments in it, but it was just dumb. What are your final thoughts on the episode, though?
Yeah, I on its own, this episode was wild and out there and just like, why am I doing this to myself? But on the other hand, after watching the next episode, um, and just kind of letting it sink in, the idea of them having to make an episode based on California Games, the video game,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take this wild plot. I'll
You know
take it.
what? No, here's an easier way to do it. They set it up right from the get-go that they could have done this. Kevin misses California. It's been established he's from California. Why don't the end team be like, well, we know of California Games World. Let's take him there to remind him of home. Mother Brain's like, oh, his defenses are going to be lowered because he's going to be sentimental about his home, and it's going to be like, I can use that against him and threaten the only link he might have back to his home in this world. And then that could have been it. Mother Brain could have gone in to like try to destroy California Games World because that would demoralize Captain N and help her win a victory over them. There's your plot. You don't need this competition energy bullshit. I don't understand, Dexter. My mind hurts trying to understand. And the whole competition energy thing, I remember finishing the episode the first time and I'm like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Why did Mother Brain and her squad just go into a warp zone? Is this what they wanted? Because it makes it sound like this is what they wanted. Because the last thing you hear is Dr. Wily going like, "We have 30 seconds," and he blows a whistle, and they all rush into the warp zone. And I'm like, what was their point then? The end team is still here. Because the crazy thing is too. Hold on. They were going to warp the end team to the earthquake zone, right?
Yes.
What happens is they warp the bad guys. The bad guys don't know they're going to the trash zone because there's not some big like, oh no, it's not this. They think they're escaping back to wherever their home world is. So the whole plan, because Dr. Wily, from the way I got this, he still thinks it went off without a hitch until he realizes he's in the trash zone and none of it worked. So they don't realize the plan fails until they go through their warp zone. They just left the N team in California Games World. They never sent them to Earthquake Zone. They never tried to send them to some other place. They just leave and they're like, all right, our mission's done. So then what the fuck was the point of any of this? I hate this episode.
This episode has proven to me that if the eventual machine uprising happens, I think I know how to defeat them. Is to we feed all of the scripts of Captain N into the AI script generator and see what comes out the other side. And if the
Oh my
machines
God.
don't explode, then we're doomed.
Dude,
But
I hate all the AI generated bullshit, but I kind of want to take all the scripts from Captain N, feed it into an AI, and have it write a new episode and
yes,
see what comes out.
yes, it's the first time I've been interested in doing something like that as well.
I might.
Just this episode alone is going to throw it way off whack.
I want this so bad, Dexter. I want this so bad. Any listeners out there who know how to do that, who know where to find the scripts of these, so I don't have to type up all the stage direction and on the lines, because I'm not. That's a lot of time that I'm. No, thank you. I want this to happen. I want this to exist. But we should wrap this episode up so we can squeeze in our second recording session of the day. So, Dexter, final thoughts on Captain N Season 2, Episode 5, The Big Game.
That was it was an episode of television. I think it's definitely because I have been enjoying season 2, but this has been the first one where I was like, I don't like this. This was the first one where I fell on the other side of the line of maybe this hasn't been good this whole time.
In general, season 2 is not my favorite, though I will say The Trouble with Tetris I really liked. Last month's episode I really did enjoy. It's so silly and dumb, and I just really enjoyed it. But this episode really was just bad. It's not even like all the other ones, like they're funny bad. This was just bad.
Yeah.
There was funny moments that you can take out and like make fun of, but overall it just hurt. And I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the next episode too. We'll get into that. I know we'll get into that, but I'm with you on that. So I think that's a good place for us to stop for this episode. We have this episode was so bad. Not this episode of the podcast, listeners. You're loving this. I promise. Right now, I'm sure you're loving this.
I guarantee it.
I mean, if you're this far in, but that will do it for this mini episode of the Still Loading podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. There is another episode of Captain N coming up next month. We are almost halfway through season 2, believe it or not. After the halfway point will be January's episode. That'll be January's episode, where then we're halfway through season 2. So, Dexter, as per usual, where can the good people find you online?
Oh, you can find me anywhere Dexters are sold. No, you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram.
In Dexter's Lab.
I'm still on Twitter. You can find me DEXTER is the first name. Last name is Morrill, MORRILL. I'm on there sharing artwork, sharing other people's stuff. Video game history is my bag. So any and all of that stuff, you can find me there.
All right. And as per usual, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StillLoadingPod on all of them. If you want to email me, you can email me stillloadingcontact@gmail.com. If you want to support the show, it honestly would mean the world to me. You can give it a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts. That helps more people find the show. That's free for you to do. Just takes a moment of your time, and it would really mean a lot to me. And I like hearing everyone's thoughts. If you want to support the show monetarily, if you're able to, you can go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you'll get all the episodes a few days earlier at a higher bit rate, as well as access to a patron exclusive Discord. For $4 a month, you'll get everything at the $1 tier plus 2 bonus mini episodes. Actually, the turnaround time for this is really quick. So the most recent bonus episode at the time of this coming out will be tribute to Rieko Kodama, who passed away sadly back in May, but we only found out a couple weeks ago. And then actually at the $5 level, so you'll get everything at the 4 and the 1 that I mentioned, the bonus episodes, the episodes earlier at a better audio quality, all that good stuff. You also get access to the Still Bonding bonus podcast. That is a monthly podcast where me and my friend Erica Gwynn do a deep dive into every James Bond movie. And at the time of this episode coming out, Goldfinger will have released literally 2 days prior, at least on the free feed. The time this episode comes out on the free feed, Goldfinger will have just been released, and that one, I guess, unfortunately, Erica was not feeling well, so she couldn't join me for that one. So I got 2 other wonderful guests, and it's a nearly 3-hour conversation about Goldfinger, and it was a great time. So if that interests you, patreon.com/stillloadingpod, bonus episodes, still bonding, episodes early, all that good stuff. It's all there for you. And finally, of course, my final shout out, the Bit by Bit Foundation. The Bit by Bit Foundation is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to put video games and video game consoles in the hands of kids receiving inpatient care at hospitals. So if you want to support them, go to bitbybitfoundation.org and consider donating. And that is all I got for you this week. Dexter, thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you.
And I will see you. Oh, I'm sorry. I almost forgot. We will think of you the next time we play video games. Or every time we play video games, what is it?
The next time.
Okay. We will think of you the next time we play video games. Bye.
Bye.
Stay right here for